All rise. We will be. Please be seated. Waiver Siswak.
Thank you very much, witness. Welcome back.
Thank you, Your Honours.
Mr. Steinberg, you're ready to continue, right?
I am ready. I just wanted to bring to the Chamber's attention that I had a brief discussion with my learned friends, and my learned friend for Mr. Ruto wants to make a short application, but it's best to be done in the absence of the accused. I suggested that rather than, the witness. I suggested rather than interrupt the witness, I should stop 5 minutes earlier, and we can deal with that at the end of the day if it pleases the court.
All right. Let us move into the private session for just one announcement, or one direction, rather. Private session.
We're in open session, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Steinberg. Your suggestion we will follow, that we wait until we will take up whatever matter Mr. Khan wishes to speak to towards the end of today's proceedings. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honours. Perhaps about 5 minutes before the end, I will stop them. I noticed we started a bit late, so we should have some spare tape after that too. Mr. Witness, before we move on to a new matter, there are just 2 or 3 aspects I would like to clarify with regard to your evidence before the lunch break about a certain speech that Mr. Ruto made on the 26th of December in the vicinity of Eldoret Police Station. The first matter is that you mentioned that Mr. Ruto said he was aware that the administration police will be used to rig the elections. My question is, by whom would the administration police be used to rig the elections? What did you understand the situation to be?
The PNU, Your Honor.
You then mentioned a Kalenjin phrase, which you translated to mean, "We will do to them what we do to the witches." And again, my question is, who was Mr. Ruto referring to in the context in which you heard it when he said we would do this to them? Who is them?
Understood it to mean the Kikuyu, Your Honor.
All right. And in Kalenjin culture and Kalenjin tradition, what is done?
We're in open session, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Witness. Having established that geography, while you were at location 8, when the presidential results were announced, what did you observe at that time? What happened then?
At that time, I could see heavy smoke from the other side of town at location number 5. And also in location number 6, shouting of people and others running to Eldoret town.
Did you say others or arrows running to Eldoret town?
Others. Yeah.
And do you know who these people were who were running to Eldoret town?
Your Honor, I heard them shouting and speaking in Kikuyu. I know they were Kikuyu people.
And do you know what was the cause of the smoke that you saw? Or did you later find out what the cause of that smoke was?
Your Honor, I found out that houses for the Kikuyu people had been burned immediately after announcement of presidential elections, and also found out that people who are running towards the town were heading to the Eldoret police station for the rescue.
And you know who was responsible for the burning of these houses?
Yes, Your Honor. The Kalenjin were responsible for the burning of these houses.
And bearing in mind we're in public session, how did you find out what was responsible for the smoke and who was responsible for the burning of the houses?
Your Honor, I saw the Kalenjin running, and out of how they were dressed, I could actually tell that they are the Kalenjins.
How were they dressed?
They had a pair of shorts and smeared their faces. And also the kind of weapons they were carrying, bows and arrows. I knew they were Kalenjins.
All right. With reference to the PIS, where did you stay that night? That's the 30th of December.
At this night, I was in Hill School, Your Honor.
Tell us how you came to be in Hill School.
Your Honor, just a reminder, we're in public.
Private session for quick minutes.
We are back in open session, Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Honours. So we've established, Mr. Witness, that Hill School is in fact an area, and I'll come back to that. But firstly, I'd like to know, you mentioned that on the 30th of December, you were at location 8 when the presidential elections were announced. What caused you to leave that area?
Your Honor, I want to state that during the day, I went to the town with intentions of going home.
All right, just stop there for a second. What caused you to go to town with the intentions to go home? Why did you have that idea or desire?
Because I had been called by my parents that there was more tension back at home.
All right, and we're in public session, but are you referring to location number 9?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what was the cause of that trouble in location number 9?
Because of the results of the elections, Your Honor.
All right. So let me just see if I understand the sequence. You received a phone call from your parents to say that there was trouble at location 9 because of the results of the elections. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are we referring to the presidential elections?
Yes, Your Honor.
So what date did you receive that call? Or let me phrase it this way, if you're not certain of the date. How soon after the announcement of the presidential election results did you receive that call?
Soon after, Your Honor.
Can you be any more specific than that?
Your Honor, even before this presidential announcements, already there were tensions and some of the houses had already been burned in location number 9. So there was even more tensions, and that is why I was called to go back home.
All right. So you say you received this call soon after the announcement of the presidential election results. What did you do as a result of that call?
Having received the call, I went to the stage with intentions of getting a vehicle to go home.
And when you refer to the stage, are you again referring to a bus station or a transport hub?
A bus station for vehicles going to location 9.
Which bus station was that?
Dorocadero.
I believe that's Brocadero. Is that correct? I can't seem to find the spelling at the moment. Can you just spell that for us, please, Mr. Witness?
Dorcadero.
Thank you. And what time of day was this that you went there? Morning, afternoon, evening?
Your Honor, I remember I went there before the announcements were made.
Which announcements?
The presidential announcements.
Right, and what happened then?
1 second. Presidential announcements or something else. Presidential elections
Yes, Your Honor.
announcement.
And that is when I was there, tensions were mounting and people were grouping themselves, even in the state, because of the delay of announcements of these elections.
We're back in open session, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam. Mr. Witness, you, in private session, gave us some details of events you observed while at location 16, and you mentioned that the next day you departed again for location 15. How did you travel to location 15?
Sorry, Your Honor, I departed to location number 1.
Right. Sorry, these pronunciations are catching me out. You departed to location number 1. And how did you travel?
I hired a private vehicle to take me to this location number 1, and I took the rough road that goes to that location via location number 6 Your Honor.
Why did you take the rough road?
Because, Your Honor, there were now roadblocks everywhere, and I could not take the main road.
And on this journey to location 1 along the rough road, did you encounter any obstacles?
Yes, Your Honor. There were roadblocks in location number 6. There was another one in location number 1 and number 2.
And tell us about these roadblocks. Who is manning these roadblocks?
Group of Kalenjin youths.
And what happened when you passed through these roadblocks?
When you arrive at the roadblocks, I was being asked to identify myself as a Kalenjin.
And how did you do that?
I answered questions that they were posing to me. These were codes that were used by the Kalenjin community.
What sort of codes?
You ask questions like, how do we know that you are a man? How do we know what do men use to drink milk? And such questions. Those are cultural questions that were being asked by the people.
I see. And can you describe the Kalenjin who were manning these roadblocks? What were they wearing? What were they carrying? What details can you give us?
They were carrying others had spears, others had bows and arrows, others had rungu or heavy sticks that were, and others just carried were busy carrying stones, and on the roadblock there was fire. They lit fire in the middle of the road.
I see. And where did you eventually alight? Where did you get off this vehicle? What location? Reference to the PIS if necessary.
To location number 1, Your Honor.
And where did you proceed to from there?
I proceeded to location number 10, which is in location number 2.
Very well. And after you arrived at location number 10, did you observe any further violence that day?
Not on that day, Your Honor.
When did you next observe any violence?
I don't remember the exact date, Your Honor, but I remember there was violence that I personally saw.
Tell us about that. Where was it?
In the neighborhood of location number 10.
We're in open session, Mr. President.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, I know you said you weren't sure of the exact date of this incident of the burning of the house you described. But can you give us an idea of how long this was after the announcement of the presidential results? How many days, approximately?
Around 2 or 3 days, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now, you've mentioned the burning of a house. You've mentioned seeing dead bodies in a police Land Rover. Did you yourself ever see anyone being killed during that period?
Yes, Your Honor. In location number 2, there was a roadblock. And then it is at this roadblock that I heard people shouting, and and others were running towards the roadblock, and I went there to see what was happening, Your Honor.
And how far was that roadblock from location 10?
Around 500 meters, Your Honor.
When you arrived at the roadblock, what did you observe?
Children were crying and shouting that they were being pulled from a vehicle, and their mother too was screaming and speaking in Kikuyu.
And what language were the children speaking in?
Kikuyu, Your Honor.
How many children?
2 children, Your Honor.
Besides the 2 children and the mother, was there anybody else in that vehicle?
Yes, Your Honor. At the other side, I saw a man who was being beaten by these youths. He was beaten until he died.
And what were the mother and children shouting? What did they say?
They were screaming, saying, "Spare us."
Who were these youths who were beating the father?
The Kalenjin youth who were manning the roadblock and others who had joined.
Do you know why the man was beaten?
Because he was a Kikuyu, Your Honor.
What became of the mother and the children? Do you know?
They were taken by the Land Rover for the police who just arrived at the scene. And I followed up to ask person number 24. And she told me that the mother was taken to hospital.
Did you see anything happen to the mother while you were there?
At that scene, Your Honor, she was also beaten, but not like the man.
You say the man was beaten to death. How do you know he was dead?
Because I saw, Your Honor, and also people at the scene confirmed that he was dead.
How many people were present when this happened?
More than 100, Your Honor.
And how many took part in the assault on the man and the mother?
Around 30 or 40, Your Honor.
How far were you from the scene of the assault when you observed this?
Approximately 5 to 7 meters.
What time of day did this happen, Mr. Witness?
At around noon, Your Honor.
And can you give us the approximate date in relation to other events you've described? So the election results, the burning of the house of the man you've described. When did this take place?
I think around 5 days after elections were announced, Your Honor.
So that would be early January, approximately the 4th of January. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Steinberg, we had reserved time. I know you did say 5 minutes, but consider whether this would be a good time to release the witness for the day.
Yes, Your Honor. I was just considering whether or not I needed to traverse another issue, so perhaps I can give it some thought overnight. We can wrap it up for the day.
So we can release the witness at this point, you're saying?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Witness, we will release you for the day, and you rejoin us tomorrow at 9:30. The blinds will come down.